Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're going to call to order this meeting at 4 p.m. and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for allegiance. Yes. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The first order of business is we will need a motion to amend the agenda to add two policies for posting. Policy 3012, non-discrimination, and policy 10001, bullying, cyberbullying, and abusive conduct, harassment, hazing, and discrimination. Can I get a motion for amending the agenda to post those two policies? I make a motion to amend the agenda with those two policies. Great. Maybe a second? Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. And now I'm gonna ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda as posted. We have, in the consent agenda, Park City High School, board, LT&T SSA revisions, travel request, Oregon swim team, travel request, a check reconciliation, March board expense report, March board revenue report, travel request, and, in the comment, quote, and SIP. I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as read. That got a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Great. All right, now we're gonna move on to updates and information and all of the awesome stuff going on and all the reports from employee groups. Want to start with PCEA?
Sure.
Great.
Make a full house tonight.
Yeah.
Good evening. I wrote this before I saw the agenda, so in an attempt to get out of the board meeting in a record time, I have a quick update from PCEA. I'd just like to recognize Jen for recent award and able to say thank you to all the classified employees for their help in this job. We'd also like to stress their positive. We'd also like to stress their positive impact in making the classroom, hallways, recesses, and other overlooked parts of this crazy business a complete success. We'd also like to thank Park City School District Administration and Human Resources for ongoing positive conversations pertaining to making the district a welcoming, accepting, and safe place for learning. In the last month, PCA has met with several building leaders and would like to say thank you for the opportunity and to compliment all of them for their continued support and willingness to engage. And finally, we would like to say thank you for the month of March being over and look forward to a very sunny break. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Hi. I know you have to say that. Yeah. You should.
All right, not much either. I'm posted, that's how I'm rolling right now. First of all, I want to say, I'm so excited, we're not negotiating this year. It is nice as I help other districts get that started, that we have a 3-year agreement, and I appreciate that we have the confidence to know what's coming, and I think that's great for our members. And that we've still been able to work on some policy this year and memos of understanding, so I think that's really great. We've been busy helping some members through some issues. Gina Cox, president of PCCA, and I have been doing a lot of conferences and trainings through NEA. And I am about to go with Belsy Moscoso from Nick. We're going to a LGBTQ IA plus conference in Arizona this weekend and hope to bring some of that back to the district. And I'm just really thankful that we have these things that we get to bring back and hopefully, you know, grow our professionalism of our ESPs. So I really appreciate all your support, and the district's been great in showing support with those things like transportation week and secretary, you know, all those different things. And we just have paraprofessional week, so really appreciate all that. And
Right. Well, thanks for taking advantage of it. I'm learning a lot, bringing it back. All right. Zach, do you wanna wait just a quick sec? Zach, do you have any updates from student council? Great,
Alright,
thank you, sorry.
so, the last week of March was Wish Week. It was, early, good. Sorry for reading words. It was really good. We raised almost twice our goal. Our goal was 5,000 and we raised $11,645. For wish kid, her name was Chloe, she's 10, her wish was to go to Texas to see family. So it's really awesome that we were able to raise twice our goal for her. The next thing is Teacher Appreciation Week. We always do a little something for our teachers. Typically we have something each day for them, always so students can recognize the teachers. We have little gift bags for one day. We'll have a wall where students can write like little notes saying like, thank you, teacher, yeah. And it's really awesome to see students like rally behind the teachers. And then we have prom on May 18th at Black Rock Resort. The theme is Casino Night. And it's from 7 to 10 p.m. And the venue we have is a new venue for student council dances and it should be really fun.
Great.
And then the last thing is we have senior sunset at 8 p.m. on May 29th.
Sunset. Great, thank you. All right. Yeah, you have a couple guests too, or are you?
I think they want us there,
Perfect.
they are
Whatever you
available to
feel
answer
comfortable.
questions, so.
Great.
For teaching and learning, we're gonna talk about our K-3 early literacy instructional materials adoption, where we are in the process. And so, Amy Jenkins here, who's our elementary director, and Katie McGinn, who's our ELA specialist for our district, and they have been helping shepherd all of this work. So if you go to the next slide here, we want to start out with the big picture of what it is we're charged with and what we're trying to accomplish and how it connects to our strategic pillars and goals. So under our academic success pillar, our goal is that 90% of students are proficient in reading by the end of third grade. And that's, even though we have not yet met that goal, it's time for us to start saying at least 90% or more than 90%, because we all know that our real goal is everybody. As far as our strategic pillar of excellent personnel, we would like to shout out our K-3 teachers, interventionists, paras, who have invested 2 to 3 years in letters training provided by the state. We also partner with one of the education consortiums. We also have the extensive years of Wilson training that is all about the science of reading. And what we're going to talk about tonight and what we're going to propose and open for public input is based in best practices for literacy instruction. Under our strategic pillar of communication, we convened our stakeholder committee and have been working for several months. We've met several times to learn about what we needed to accomplish in adopting K-3 and early literacy instructional materials. And I'm going to ask them to help me so I don't forget who our stakeholders were. So we had district personnel and staff, we had administrators involved, we had teachers involved, parents involved, interventionists involved, PC reads involved, and special education involved. So, oh, and GT PACE also. So we tried to have a good selection of people, and what we will present to you tonight is the
consensus decision of that recommendation of that team. We also would like to shout out PC Reads as our community alliance. They are, deeply connected to the history of literacy, particularly with services for dyslexia, helping fund Wilson training, being connected with foundations. And so we wanted to say thank you to Alyssa Ayton and the team there.
Nice.
Okay, next thing that we need to look at is what our desired outcomes were. And for our team, we want best practice in reading instruction. And as we mentioned, we have a background with reading training and letters and Wilson training. We want reading improvement for all students. So our desired outcome is that no matter where students are on the spectrum of reading, that they are moving along, that we're not just looking for something that's remediation, but that all students are progressing. We also desired that for interventions in what we call tier 2 and tier 3, right, with reading interventionists and paras, that it could be more coordinated than it is now to ensure progress for every student. And we also want high quality results from core literacy instruction. And as you'll see in a couple of minutes here, we're talking about kind of two parts of literacy, and the latest science of reading, which has been going for 15 to 20 years. Things have been adapted and adjusted, and we want to make sure that we're doing that core instruction that develops critical thinking skills even in those K-3 grades. And it does also encompass reading and learning about social studies and science, because it is that part where you're reading to learn is, right? Some of the conditions for success that we believe that we need in the materials that we propose to adopt. We want to align materials to the 2023 ELA standards. The current materials, I have a typo on there. Our current materials were adopted in 2016. And some materials have made some improvements and improved alignment since then. We want all students on track, accelerated, or currently behind to move forward in a way that we can explicitly monitor, like on a week-to-week basis. We want screening and monitoring to be done often, and the interventions to match the students' needs at whatever level they are. We want a system that can be used by teachers and paraprofessionals fairly easily. And we want a tier 3 system that allows for more personalized instruction. And our reading interventionist that was here was, with one of the things that we're going to propose tonight, said, I spend time creating these materials, and these materials are already created. So we're looking for ease of use. As we move forward, a simple definition of what it takes for this early literacy needs is decoding plus language comprehension equals reading comprehension. And the decoding practices that we're talking about include things like phonics, phonemic awareness, syllabification, word recognition, even when you've had your own children read nonsense words. Those things are the part that it does get taught during tier 1 instruction, but also during tier 2 instruction. That's where small groups would happen, and that's where we need to know where a student is and what's the next thing that they need to learn. And we need interventionists to be able to know that, and tier 1 teachers to be able to know that. So you can see that split over there on the top row. In the language comprehension, that's where you also have tier 1 instruction in the classroom. Background knowledge, vocabulary, syntax, language structure, verbal reasoning. So even though this is a simple definition of reading, we're also referencing the research that's called the reading rope that has these two that have to get combined together in order for our students to truly be literate. In that language comprehension, we need whole group and ability to do small group instruction for tier 1 and tier 2. So that's what we're looking for. And we reviewed different kinds of material. We are using the USBE recommended materials. We're looking at what other districts are doing. We're following recommendations in the legislative audit. So take a look at what we are recommending. So for decoding, there is materials that are called the 95% group. They have a phonics core program, a phonics lesson library, and then for tier 3, a reading achievement program. Our friends in North Summit that have been getting great reading results have been using 95%. It would replace not our Wilson training, nor our letters training, but it would replace our foundations curriculum with the 95% curriculum. It also has some resources such as like a spreadsheet dashboard that will keep track of students' progress as they move forward through their decoding skills. And even students that are on grade level or accelerated, it also keeps track of what's next for them, and the grade level or the school can work together to group students into small groups to monitor and check their progress. The tier 1 teacher rechecks the small group work about every 3 weeks. So students move, and we will be able to know how fast students are moving, how far they're moving, and what they're doing. And we're very excited about a tool that can help us do that. And that tool will work across grade levels and across the district. So we like that. Questions about 95%?
I have a general question.
Yes.
Years ago, years ago, I was probably brand new to board, we met with a bunch of the teachers that felt overwhelmed by how many new things they had to learn. Is that still the case? I mean, foundations is going away and the whole new thing, is that stress level still there, just part of the deal, or?
That's the exact question I asked to the teachers that were on the committee, and they said the idea, so yes, it will be a lot.
Okay.
But we do have the team assembled that can help. We have the resources, and they said, and if you'll guarantee us the professional learning for at least 3 years, and we will make sure, because with 95%, we can train ourselves internally and continue the professional learning. Also, they were very excited by the idea that everybody that's doing interventions in tier 2 and tier 3, everyone is now using the same materials or related materials. They're all in the same team, and every time we have a discussion about a child or a group of children, we are all on the same page and we know what we're doing. So when I asked them, we're proposing 2 things, is this too much? They said, we're ready and we want to move.
Okay, right. So I had a follow-up to that.
Yes.
Do you have the support staff? Like, do you have staff? Do you have enough resources to get this implemented without overstretching and then it falling apart a little bit? Or you put in a rough, I mean, we're in the process of budget
Right.
and requests and all of that.
Instructional
so-
coaches will be brought on board, having an ELA specialist, having an elementary director, who's been doing her own administrative letters training. We're all making sure that
Yeah,
we
I think
can
it's that
provide
idea of
that.
how we can coordinate both sides of the house for
Okay.
teaching learning and the interventionists, because it's all umbrella under that same program, if you
Yeah,
will. So I think our team gets to grow because of the way that they've asked for it to be structured.
Okay,
So, yeah. The expertise is there.
Yeah.
We may need to, we'll need to talk about what the implementation of the LIP looks like.
okay,
But we may need to be thoughtful about the unboxing and setting up
yeah.
of these things. And I think once we're set up and ready to go, the boots are on the ground, the knowledge is there with all the training that the teachers have been going. So,
Yeah, let us know what supports and such.
So we do believe that the part of our reading, the decoding part, where we've had a section of our targeted population that hasn't moved like we want them to move, we think this will help us get that to happen, and we will be able to be very specific and make it work.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you as far as measures, because I'm back to your first slide of pillars and goals, the success with 90% of the students perfecting reading by the end of third grade. Where are we now? And some of those other things that you were talking about, do you have milestones and measures, and then where you want to be, and we'll watch that and see what's working or not working?
So there are really two measures, make sure I say the numbers correctly. So on the Acadians and Dibbles, there are two measures, one is a more strict measure and one is a more general measure. On Acadians and Dibbles, it typically looks like we're at 77% that are in the, what we call in the green and the blue, so not in the red and the yellow. The USBE has been much more specific about what they mean for being at target and on grade level. And that number for us this year was lower, 57%, which is high compared to many other places in the state. But because that difference between the 57% and the 77% is students that are in the green and the blue, right? These materials are not just for remediation, so even students that are close, we will be able to diagnose and be prescriptive and help them move.
What's your timeline on this to get to 90%? Because that's quite a.
2028, this is our 5-year goal.
Okay, and so
Right.
measures of every year, we have metrics of what, and we report back and let us know how we're doing or not.
Yes.
If we thought that was great, it's really not, we need to pivot kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll have a beginning year, a middle of year, and an end of year.
You mentioned Utah comparative schools. Do we have a sense beyond that? Like, can we
Nationally?
Well, I mean, across the whole state and nationally, like where are we? And the other part was how are we trending? So like 57%, that sounds pretty bad.
Right.
Like how are we trending with that?
So we're trending slightly upward as we're recovering from COVID. The individual elementary schools are looking hard at their middle year and trying to make mid-year to end of year adjustments. And after we do the end of year testing, then we'll see. But we quickly want to close that gap between that 57% and the 77%. But I think we were a little complacent, but it was a shock heard around the state when USBE gave a more stringent definition of what it meant to be at grade level, because everybody was feeling good about being in the green and the blue. It seemed like the right thing, but it wasn't enough. So we're working on that. And I will bring you trend line data about that. as we
Nick, one thing that we mentioned, I think in one of the beginning meetings with that, we set a 9th as a district in the state of Utah for our students at 3rd grade reading on grade level, based on that new number. And we talked about how it's a composite score that relates to a Lexile. So I think that's something that we are tracking because that's our accountability to the state. When we've asked outside of the state of Utah, because of the percentile that puts our students at, it's actually a very rigorous goal. And we all believe our students can learn and whatever. So I don't know that there's a comparative outside of the state of Utah to that same Lexile score being that, other than the national percentile. So it's above 50%, I believe, in all of
Yeah,
them.
I mean, it's really just about context. So you put a 57% number out there and people say, whoa, 57%, but like, what's the context?
And one of our concerns, along with what you're saying, is what does it hide when there's a composite number? When we know that over the past 10 years, about 20% of our students are progressing at the rate that we want them to do. So we give us 2 or 3 years with this and let's see where they are by 3rd grade.
Do we know what district, and we say the 9th in the state, do we know what the 8 above us are doing differently?
We looked at that, actually 95%
is one of the things they're doing.
including the highest performing charter school down in the valley. So, yeah, and they have an 85% reading on grade level for third grade. So.
They are a charter, it's not an open charter,
Sure,
right?
but they're listed in the state's data, so, yeah. So we've done some homework, and I think that everybody that, is looking for a comprehensive, tiered, multi-tiered program is saying this is the one that gets the results, and most of it is because of that quick assessment and intervention regrouping turnaround. So students aren't, as we would say, permanently placed in a group where they don't need that skill anymore, they're ready to move forward. So I think that's what was most exciting to our teachers and interventionists and special educators.
And all students get something in their tier two, all students.
Last question, if 90% is a 5-year goal, what's the goal for closing the gap between 57 and 17, whatever it is?
Well, I'd like to get to 77 in the first 2 years. So we'll see how we can get from 57 as far as we can get this year. And then with next year, that'll give us our year one results. It will be an implementation year, but we believe with the proper training, and it has great materials and support, that we can assist students.
And this is getting implemented in fall? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, so you took.
Well, no, I just, with expanding preschool access in our, I mean, that's just gonna help us get ahead of.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so are preschool teachers, educators using any?
So there is an opportunity for preschool teachers to do letters training. We're in that middle of that, getting ready for that 2-year preschool expansion. We're gonna have to look at curriculum there. We need to remember that we use classified staff for that, so we might need to consider bringing on at least one certified staff who specializes in early literacy and special education, and that will be a proposal that we'll bring to you later. You can make a
Sorry,
decision
one
on.
final.
They say there's one more.
That you mentioned at one spot that the materials you were actually 2016. Current materials. Yeah, what, yeah, it's time, it sounds like, that seems, but will that all transition out with this new 95, with this new program? Like, is that a natural
Yes,
evolution of
and
materials?
you know, we will have to train and work, but we will have the materials for everyone, and they will be using those. Coaches will
Okay.
be looking at that, principals will be assisting, and we will be doing it in all 4 elementaries, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're kind of aware of what materials make
Yeah,
the
we
most sense to
wondered-
use.
We've wondered, the interventionists specifically have been thoughtful already about what is it we should retain
Yeah,
as just another tool in our toolkit.
Yeah.
And I would say specifically to the foundations materials, so the
Okay.
phonics and decoding stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, Wilson and Wharton Gillingham Transit, especially are, in the world of special education, we want to retain those things so that, if there's a specific need for an individual student, we've got the ability to use that. So
okay,
those don't go away, but I think for that core phonics and that tier 1 and tier 2 piece, this is where 95% really comes in and creates that complete package. And then the tier 3 will be inclusive of the foundations pieces it's still needed, and the Wharton Gillingham Wilson reading programs that are run in those special education spaces.
okay.
At risk of opening up the whole kind of rooms, what does that reading level look like past 3?
What does it say that
Past
question?
third grade.
Reading
Yeah,
past
so-
3rd
Oh,
grade,
good question, yeah.
I would need to pull it.
Yeah.
I think that's
It-
where, I think
Yeah.
that's where we switch, and third grade is tricky because they're still monitored under Acadians for some of these foundational reading skills, but then they're also, tested on RISE. And so it turns over to the standards,
So then it's
the ELA standard, all inclusive of, all aspects of language arts, including writing and speaking and listening and things like that. So that's where we look at that interconnection with, Stacy mentioned the reading rope, that's where that rope comes together. And so that's where having a third grade teacher on the committee, and then knowing that that's our sweet spot to start sort of shifting off of the decoding piece and more towards the language comprehension, and the decoding becomes the interventions for the kids who still need it.
Okay.
So, So looking at our current RISE data, I think we want to see a trend start to move up. We all know that we have great growth in our students, but we're not always reaching the number of students proficient that we
Yeah.
want. So I think that's another metric that we'll want to set some intermediate goals for ourselves to see how that's going.
Yeah, just interested to see how, you know, if we're lagging at third grade, like, do we close that gap as we go, or does it continue to lag or not?
As we get to ACT scores are very high, and we look at them, one of our 5 goals for our district is looking at those subgroup goals, and they look good. But we want to increase the trajectory of students so that it isn't at such a heavy lift at the end. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, thank you okay.
The important slide.
Oh, okay, we're not done with this slide yet.
There's one more part.
Okay, so there's also the part where we're working on language comprehension, which includes the, and we want to recommend, wit and wisdom. And, one of the things that kind of fell off the table in many places for early literacy in K3, because people were thinking we are learning to read instead of reading to learn. So this is the piece where you're also reading to learn. So your core skill building, your knowledge building, you're doing oral and written language development. Wit and wisdom has a nice high level of rigor, but it is approachable. They embed text in the form of books into the instruction. They also are very like the content oriented.
Social science, sciences, you're reading about things in your other content.
There are, yeah, and there's some other programs where they kind of weave these two together, but because we liked 95% group, we liked that wit and wisdom was discrete in the K3 level. And our teachers already do have time in their day. So even though it sounds like a lot of moving pieces, and elementary teachers are amazing, right? That amount of time that they spend, they can tweak and make it move to make that work. They would be doing whole group and small group tier 1 and 2 instruction. Questions about that? Okay.
Those are big changes though, so it is important to note that, right? These are big changes that are coming from the committee, directly from the committee. And after lots and lots of research, Katie, how long have you been working on this?
From last August, when I started.
Right, so it's not a snap decision from people, they've really done a lot of background, site visits at other places. Doing the research on what people are finding are the easiest parts and the hardest parts of adoption to be able to learn from others, so that you're not having to make the same, my steps, but it is, as they said, it's going to be a heavy PD lift for this group. And what's interesting is they'll be finishing their 3 years of letters training, which is the science of reading. So they're finishing that and now going into how do we apply this right into this new environment with these new materials. So it'll make a direct application to what they've been doing the past 3 years in these grade levels.
So the next steps are, the going live tomorrow on our website, and thank you to Colton, who's been helping us. The parent review links will be on the website. Both Wit and Wisdom and 95% have created a parent review site that you can dig into, and there'll be a link on our main page that takes you to the teaching and learning page, and it has these pieces on there. We will host an open Zoom meeting in case any parents, patrons, or other stakeholders have questions. The 3 of us will be available. We will do it in the afternoon of April 23rd and the morning of April 30th. But at any time, a parent can fill out this survey link, and we just have an open survey. We are asking people to put their names and contact information, their connection to our district, whether it's as a community patron or have students in our schools, and we will ask them for feedback on what they see there and be available to answer questions. And then the input will close on May 10th. and then we will come back to the board.
How does this impact ESL routes and channels, or is this all, like, are you gonna have, for this in Spanish, parent Zoom meeting? And talk, like, is there an impact on, or a different model that is gonna be needing tweaking, or?
Okay, well, in Spanish, so I am bilingual, so anything anyone wants to ask us, we can address in those Zoom meetings. The links are to materials that are in English.
Yeah.
Because this is for tier one
Yeah.
instruction,
Yeah.
right? And even in the DLI programs, this is on the English side. But if any parent is finding difficulty accessing anything, we're glad to address it in those Zoom meetings.
Okay.
I wonder if we could, on the parent review of the links there,
Yeah.
if we can link or reference the outreach coordinators in each of the elementary schools and their phone numbers.
I
So
would
if
be
somebody
smart.
has questions, so.
I think that'd be great.
Provide that,
Yeah.
and just.
And
make sure
we'll be forwarding all the link information. Yeah, we'll be forwarding all the link information to all the elementary schools to put in newsletters, so we'll make sure that goes out in English and
Spanish,
in
and as long as
Spanish.
it just says, here's where to reach out if you have questions about this.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That's great.
We'll absolutely do
Okay.
that. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of that. Thanks. All right. Mr. Tanner. Have any operations to report?
Yes, and I'll be very short. So operations update for the 9th of April, 2024. The Buildings and Grounds Department, our construction continues on time and on budget at all locations. The gradual snow melt we've been experiencing is allowing for a low impact spring, so no worries about flooding. Service was contracted to attack spring rim buster potholes that emerged throughout the district. We probably have experienced a few of those. Early FY 25 capital projects were identified, and ordering for high lead time items is underway. And work continues on a contemporary rewrite of the local agreement with a target of the 31st of December. The old interlocal agreement will stay in place until the meeting is complete. Transportation, our contract route staffing is healthy, so we're now working to build up our substitute numbers. As staffing recovers, the department is working to bring some athletic charters back in the house school. Child Nutrition Service, John Hopkins reports that the department is functioning smoothly. Human Resources, Craig and his team have been working on some policy updates, as you're aware. Craig also reports that his department is functioning quite smoothly. Security, Zero Eyes is now integrated with Ajax, meaning that if we have a Zero Eyes sensed validated weapons alert, it will automatically populate Ajax and get an instance locked down to our staff, which is really neat. Work continues on an update to the district's emergency response and communication plan. Operations met with the Summit County Sheriff's Office and Park City Police Department and their attorneys on a strategy to meet requirements of House Bill 84. We talked about the staffing and our presence on all schools.
And we confirm that's gotta be in place by next January, or what, do we even know?
Yeah, what I reported out last month was likely an error.
Okay.
From my initial read, I read that it was the 31st of December of 2024.
Okay.
When talking with the Park City attorney, her professional attorney read out it was that that the plan on how to solve this has to be in place by the 31st of December 2024 versus the actual
Implementation, so we're not necessarily paying to, got it.
The ops, we have a regular standing meeting with the Park City Police Department with the current campus principals, and that happened on Tuesday. And the spring security committee meeting was held today with great updates and collaboration and surprise power outage in the middle of it. But other than that, that's all I could operation. So,
Great,
any updates?
take that. Cool. Yeah, any questions? All right, thank you, Mike. All right, Dr. Gilday. Excellent. Okay.
PowerPoint this time. I'm going to go ahead and share my April letter with all of you. So I was born on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so that's always like a special day for me and my family. And then my family's always shared different quotes and different stories from Martin Luther King Jr. because it, you know, this sharing a special day. I've especially loved having the day off since that day became a holiday. That's been fun. But one of his quotes that resonates is returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And when I think about schools, I think about love, right? I think about light, joy, happiness, friendships, and all of the great things that come with school. So in light of our recent OCR report, I do want to affirm and reaffirm that our school district is committed to more than just meeting the requirements of the resolution agreement. Beyond administrative tasks, we're focused on fostering a culture that is welcoming to all students, emphasizing the core values of our community, and continuously working to improve the culture, the climate, and the connections. Because it is really about a student feeling belonging that is going to make a lot of this better, right? You have to feel you belong in the system and a part of it in order to thrive. As superintendent, I apologize for any instance where our district fell short of providing a nurturing and safe environment. Every student deserves to achieve to their full potential in a supportive setting. And we are taking steps to continue working towards our aspirational vision and mission as a school system by inspiring and supporting all students equitably to achieve their academic and social potential. So when the board is making a decision, you're always looking at whether our students are safe. How many times do we talk about safety every day? Supported. How do we do the curriculum? How do we do the tiered support? Engaged, challenged, and healthy. So those are the two areas we are constantly focused on. In order to get beyond, to work through this report and then to get beyond it, education is the answer. Education is pivotal in addressing the issues highlighted by the report, specifically around discrimination and harassment. And we do encourage all families to discuss these issues with their children, fostering a culture of kindness and understanding. I have my little bracelet that says kindness is magic, but I don't believe kindness should have to be magic, right? It should be something that we are trying to extend in our community, because that's what people love when they come here. How many people do you know that come and visit Park City and they talk about meeting someone on the chairlifts? Yeah, and people from around the world, and people talk about how welcoming and caring the environment is. So we certainly want to see that in our schools as well as outside. But if our families help us by talking about this at home, this is something that we think is a piece. Certainly we will address the school parts, but we do need, kind of that back and forth. And so we're going to continue to develop materials and share resources in our monthly newsletters and in our school newsletters, so parents kind of know what's a great start or what's a great STEM, and trying to help with what action steps do we actually need to take. Well, so if I am a student who's sitting nearby and I hear or see something happen, and Zach, I know you physically helped with something, right? So we do have students that are upstanders, right, that are allies. And so we can teach kids how, if something's happening, how to report, what to say next, how to make sure something is tackled. So we're really looking at, to ensuring that that kind of teaching goes beyond just one classroom into all classrooms. So I think those things are very important. To support this, we're preparing and sharing these resources, and you're going to hear in the next newsletter, you're going to see that in April. It'll say interrupt, ask, educate, and echo. So that's part of a movement that's called Speak Up. And so again, it'll have just these little sentence stems, so if you hear something, stop it in its tracks, whether you're an adult, walking in the hallway, whether you're another student, interrupt that. Don't let the words just keep going out if they're awful, right? Try to stop that. Ask the question, what would make us say that? Listen, and then educate. Take the opportunity to educate. What is the basis of saying something like that? How is it harmful? So that's where we need the education piece. And then, continue to say that's really not what we want here. It's not what we want in our schools. Each of our schools has been developing lessons. I first started at the beginning of the year, because last year they knew some of these terms. They were hearing it in the hallways and they were talking with OCR about these things. They had lessons ready to go at the fall, they roll them out and they repeat them each quarter. At treasurer, principal, fine, it's here tonight, I think we're on our third lesson on language, and words matter. You know, this is enough, you know, we need to really, we need to work on these core values to make sure our children feel safe so that everybody can learn better. So the report is not just tactical, right? There's this emotional element of this report as well. So the commitment that we're making does extend beyond compliance. So it is aiming to improve our school's atmosphere, making sure it's welcoming to all. Now, this does also include implementing disciplinary actions, restorative practices, and focusing on something called restorative justice, which is the bigger principle. So the bigger principle and the approach seeks to repair harm, rebuild the relationships, and address the root causes of the behavior through education and accountability. So it's not to say that just a suspension alone is going to solve this kind of problem. It takes integration back into the environment to be able to apply these skills that we've learned and try to make reparation and apology to one another and figure out that way to move forward. Because yes, there might be a safety plan where you're separated for a time, but all of us know that our children in our community are together, Zach, from 6th through, right? It's the same 350 kids. So you can't have enemies with everybody, right? You have your fairly small group, you want to be friends, right? So safety, both physical and emotional, in all of this is paramount. We stand with our educators and staff in creating this safe and caring environment for all students. Our students at student councils across the schools have shown a willingness to lead solutions-oriented work. And this reflects our community's resilience and our commitment to improvement. As superintendent, with the support of our dedicated staff and community, I am, and we are committed to ensuring every child is safe, supported, and free from discrimination. Together, I do believe we can create significant positive change, affirming our commitment to every student's well-being and success. Then one of my other fun quotes from Harriet Beecher Stowe is never give up, for that is just the place and time that the tide will turn. Hope is that it will be turning in a very positive way for all of our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I guess one question, obviously, as we received the report and we digested it, we talked about it, there was a plan to how we communicated around that. What does the communication look like going forward as we take remediation, you know, as we go forward? How do we reassure the community that we are making progress to build those issues?
Right, and I do think talking about this frequently is one of those ways, right? So we've had different meetings with PTO leaders, our PCEF board has had one meeting. We have posted on the website kind of this first progress report. So there are different quarters, right, that we're reporting on things kind of in every, you know, we'll update monthly, but then every 3 months, there's kind of a, you know, monitoring in the timelines that we have. So in this first progress report, tonight, we're going to talk more about policies for posting. So these have been updated and aligned a little differently than we've had before. So the policy updates, we've gotten a list of incidents to review from last year. So that's underway, and making sure all those families are contacted and feel that there's been a resolution with those claims. And so those have been like the first two most important things. And so that little progress report is up on the website along with just the different STEM areas, you know, that we said we're following up on with what those actions are. So every time there's an update, you know, there'll be a little progress report that people can link to.
I think the number one thing is acknowledging that there are places to get better, and that's what we're working on. All right, so we'll continue to get updates at our monthly meetings as well.
Yeah,
For the
and then in our
foreseeable future.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then in the district newsletter, you'll see these, what we're calling kind of toolkit things. We've been doing wellness themes every month in the district newsletter, which are, there's something you can talk about with elementary kids, you know, making a friend, solving a problem, being respectful. You know, we're gonna start doing some more targeted, what is bias? What is a bias-based harm? You know, as the kids get older, you know, what is a way to prevent bias-based harm? So some of the resources will be linked, to these definitions and really trying to educate.
If anyone ever has, an issue, they can write school, write you, write communications, where
Absolutely.
reach out, every school has a website or a link. Or.
Yes, we do. We're gonna keep improving the record
Continue
keeping.
to
Yeah, that was the other first
communicate.
place thing, remember, was the record keeping. So we have had, and again, you know, schools are very busy places. I don't know how many of you volunteer, you work in schools, or you've been in schools, very, very busy. So when something happens, often there might be a Post-it note or, you know, something in a notebook. And then it has to get transferred. We're gonna make that form of where you're gonna put things down much easier to access on every website. Right now it's Google, so right now there's a little glitch with it. We have to
Okay.
fix that.
Okay.
It works, and then we do get the reports, but we wanna make it even easier.
So someone has
They
to,
continue to be Google, or are we still looking at,
Enter. We think, and it's not hugely expensive, but we do think we need to move towards a consistent reporting for each and every school, so that when we do pull these reports, whether it's for ourselves, or whether it's for the principals, or whether it's for OCR, you know, it can be a consistent, report, and investigations will be handled for these 22-23 cases by a fairly consistent team, so that they're trained the same way, and that if we go back, they can then pull out any themes for preventive care as well.
Obviously, for a couple of years, OCR is watching us to make sure that we are compliant, right? Beyond that, what's the oversight mechanism to make sure people are using whatever the tool is?
Right, it's, you know, Carolyn, you got something?
I just said sitting in this room. That would
But it is, it's the conversations, right? It's, so I have weekly conversations with principals, but it's, you know, me intentionally asking, you know, what are the things usually people are
Yeah.
sharing those pretty
yeah,
quickly, but, you know, it's monitoring it. And we actually expect incidents are going to go up, right? We actually expect whenever
Oh,
you
yeah.
put a form in or a survey in, you're actually gonna see that because people are finally feeling comfortable reporting, and you'd rather have that. You'd rather, you don't want the incident, right? But if you are having an incident, you wanna see that people know to report. And then by the spring survey, next year, comes up the spring survey, next 2 years, you know, and then those will say, how comfortable are you reporting? Have you had anything to report? Did you report? You know, and so, and do you have more suggestions for us? You know, so that too, I mean, people can email a suggestion anytime.
and we're like, to help.
So all these communications at these schools, like that's FACE, which is
Yeah.
Family and Community Engagement, Outreach Coordinator, a teacher, a principal,
Okay,
me, any of us,
yep,
Board members?
more information.
Board members.
board members. Yeah,
We'll get
so
to the right
any of us.
spot, okay. Any other questions or comments there? Okay, all right, we're gonna move into discussion. Mr. Tanner, we're gonna see you back up here, or update facilities, yep.
Okay, construction update for us. The high school is on schedule and on budget. Our mechanical, electrical, plumbing work, or MEP is following, and HVAC work continues. The roof of phase 1 is set in, with metal roof decking now being welded in place. Interior wall framing is underway on floors 2 and 3. Insulation and drywall are being installed on the first floor. The furniture order was finalized and submitted on budget today. And the project is on schedule to receive students with phase 1 in the fall of 2024. Substantial completion will be the spring of 2025 when we get both phases complete. Edgar Hill Middle School is on schedule and on budget. The MEP work, and HVC work, fire suppression system continues. In Area A, which is our southern academic wing, exterior masonry is complete, structural steel roof joists are set, and roof decking is installed, and interior framing is underway on the first and second floors. In Area B, which is a northern academic wing, the masonry walls are complete, structural steel is being set for the second floor and roof. Metal floor decking is being set, and a slide is being poured on the second floor. You'll also notice the metal being erected for the penthouses on M22 sections. So that's the final vertical phase of the buildings. On the gym expansion, the roofing work is continued and should be ready for, our plan is to have it ready for the school year that fall starts next fall. Furniture order was also finalized and on budget there. Substantial completion spring of 2025. Jeremy Ranch on schedule on budget. Our final punch list items are underway with the paint and trade touch-ups happening. Commissioning of all the mechanical systems are underway for all the buildings, and construction fencing was removed last week. Our final completion is anticipated April 30th of 2024. The keys will be handed over to us at the end of this month. With Poland on schedule on budget, final punch list items are underway with the paint trade touch-ups as January. Commissioning is underway again for all the building systems. Construction fencing was removed. The walkway between Treasure and Poland will be restriped to improve student flow onto the new Poland sidewalk and away from the traffic. We are anticipating final completion at the end of this month. Again, we will hand the keys over to us at the end of April. Harley's Park is on schedule on budget. Ongoing work continues on interior framing in the existing kindergarten. Kim asked the construction team to give her staff a quick interior look, and JD and our construction site superintendents opened the doors and showed interior work, and they were kind of surprised at what was going on there. So that's progressing along well in the multi-purpose and music rooms. We have underground utility relocation, sewer rerouting and connection, and material MEP. Remodel of the existing interior will be complete for the start of this new school year. And the footing and foundation work for the east side expansion is underway. And we have the block and structural steel on place. So in the next month, we'll start seeing that coming up out of the ground because all the underground work is complete. Substantial completion there is for the spring of 2025. Trail side, the CUP application was submitted to the county. We've got some feedback from them that we responded to. The USB project number application is over half complete. Our utility location borings were accomplished. Construction documents were received on the 9th of March. And the construction documents were, the construction bids were received on the 4th of April. And initial indications are that the pricing is favorable and they're coming in under budget. In early June 2024, construction start is planned with substantial completion in summer of 2025. Just a reminder to our constituents that a construction summary and layman's terms narrative is posted weekly on the district website. And we have JD, the brains behind the operation from our local team. If you have any in-depth questions on the construction projects.
Nice to be out of the snow season. Knock on wood.
Just want to touch base on soil mitigation.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you
Phase
about
3 of that will happen over spring break. We'll start on Monday. A notification graphic will be posted to the news section of the district website. EPA and DEQ will be on site as they have in the past. We'll have pre and post operational testing for lead at Treasure, make sure that we're not getting any elevated levels. We're told that we don't anticipate getting all the soil, although when I look at it, I don't know why, but we're hoping for good weather, but in the May, so we'll be removed properly after the school year ends before we start summer school.
So it should be done by June.
Right, beginning of June.
Total.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a chance it is done during the spring break?
Sorry,
Should it be done during the spring break?
you know, the layman looking at the pile there, it looks like we've got, a third or less remaining. From my perspective, I think it looks like it might be. But from Steve Galley, who's our R&R consultant person, who's spearheading all the project work on this project, he doesn't anticipate getting off. We might have just a small.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just let's get some walkthroughs of those new facilities. Let's go see them.
Yeah. I know.
Great, thank you. All right, Doctor. Caroline.
I've also brought Dr. Best with me.
Great.
Who is my the district ESL coach.
Okay,
So we're gonna talk newcomer supplement materials, very
Okay.
small scale compared to what Stacy just told you. We're talking about 100-ish kids. And newcomers defined as 0 to 9 to 12 months when they students first come to the US. So that's our target.
Okay.
It's on WIDA levels, 1s, some 2s, but really targeted on those level 1 WIDA. So Dr. Best put a team together and they looked at 9 different programs and ended up selecting Ready, Set, Go for K-5 and English 3B for 6-12. And we are excited to move forward with this. So same boat as Stacy's team. we're here today to bring it to your attention. We are doing a Zoom meeting for parents in the community on April 25th at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. It'll be in English and Spanish. We'll send the flyer out, Swift K-12, and put it on social media so parents know about that evening or that day with the two. And yeah, it's pretty short and sweet. If you guys have any questions.
Age range, did I miss that?
Yeah, so, Ready, Set, Go is the curriculum we picked for our supplement material. It's not like a curriculum, it's a supplement, for K-5.
K-5, okay,
Yeah, and then the English 3D, it's called for 6-12.
6-12, okay.
And is the idea that in both those, they're pulled and given at like, on average, what are what's the amount of time in a week?
Yeah, so our ALS, we recommend anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes daily, 4 days a
Okay.
week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that is a pullout with our interventionists.
Okay,
And then, our ESL teachers doing it at the secondary.
so are there targeted interventionists who are gonna be attending trainings, or how they learn
Yeah.
Ready, Set, Go?
They were part of the
Yeah.
committee, huge part of the committee.
Right.
This is really what they wanted. They looked into it. And it's nice we're using Title III money to support,
Okay.
this curriculum.
How does that dovetail into the dual immersion, like how you're pulling in your dual, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're proficient on one side, but you're probably lagging in the other, so you pulled out, like how does it work?
Yeah, you pulled mostly out of English,
Out of English to get the,
because you're learning English.
yeah,
The whole point of this, is to learn English.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Great.
and the Ready, Set, Go is got, you said, right, dictionary, picture dictionary, it's got just really basic. It's learning how to say, hello, where's the bathroom? How do I do these things? Where's my pencil?
Is it like Duolingo, because I just download,
Yeah.
and I have a really hard time remembering half of what I'm learning, I might join you guys. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're really excited. It's something we've really needed.
right,
You know, last year we had just under 100 newcomers. This year we've got a little over 100.
wow.
So our interventionists at the elementary level are like, we need help. We need
That's
something.
great. Wow,
Yeah.
so they're not feeling overwhelmed, one more program didn't let, they're
No,
feeling great,
they have
hope
it.
that they have something.
I think Mary's first day I said to her,
Great.
get me a newcomer.
Yeah, okay. Great,
So here we are.
nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for
Any
being here.
questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right, thanks so much.
Yes. All right. You ready?
Budget, should we do it?
We got a bit to go over here. Budget.
Everyone's asleep right here.
Just some, what, we are over there, there's an error. A couple of us are getting back. I'm sorry, I'm not being.
Good.
Thanks, I think we got,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of small print, but, anyway, we'll go through this. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about, the operation requests we put together and capital requests, just kind of give you a sense of where we are for some things. We're just starting to get in heavy to the budget process. Next week, we'll have, meetings on a lot of our final numbers from the state and impacts the legislative session from the financial.
Never mind, it's okay. Don't worry. Sorry, it's okay, I'll be fine. Thank you.
So we've got kind of, these are the operation requests. You can see first, we kind of got them broken into some categories. Keep in mind, we kept staffing the same. Partially because of the reconfiguration next year, and deal with some of the attrition this year. And then obviously, we've got some developments we talked to you about that are potentially going up, even though we're not seeing quick work on it. We're trying to keep that staff as hard as it is to hire certain staff right now. And so we're keeping the schools harmless as far as that's concerned. From an academic achievement standpoint, we do have a request in here for some additional coaches for extracurricular activities. It's 19 total. Keep in mind they're stipend positions, they're not full-time positions. I think 13 and a half of those, as we looked at, 13 and a half of those positions are for female sports or activities for the girls. So there's been a lot of sports between like wrestling, right? They've added women's wrestling. But anyway, the sports that they've added or cross country where we have boys and girls at the same time, looking at expanding some of those. So safe school environments, supporting the whole child life skills curriculum, K-5 has been requested for $50,000. as part of our attract and retain employees, we've set aside $676,000 for benefit changes, the medical insurance. We've got some of those estimates going off we've got those amounts. The committee, the insurance committee is meeting the week after spring break. And so we'll have some discussions as to what those changes are recommended from the committee and provide that information later today with some more details. Coaches' pay has not gone up in at least 3 or 4 years. And so this number represents bringing them back to this current year's raise and next year's raise, and then we'll tie it to the normal raise after that on an ongoing basis as part of our package. HR has requested some employee recognitions so we can recognize employees. And then we've set aside some money as we negotiated last year with the associations to look at the PTO payout as it exists now. And as we're coming up with recommendations, and we'll be meeting with them as well on some of those recommendations, we've set aside some money for a potential pilot program to pilot that and see how that works with the goal of minimizing PTO time that's being used. As far as school family community engagement, we're adding 20 days to community ed director position, which has already been ongoing. It's just paid separately as a special contract. So we're just solidifying something that's already happening. On the fiscal and operational side, property insurance premium, this is the number, this is the estimate we received in January. There was a large amount that had to be funded by the legislature, and that was done, even though it was cut in public ed appropriations. Executive appropriations came back and fully funded the whole amount. And so we're not sure what that final number is. We think we'll have that number next week with any hope that'll go down. But property insurance is definitely increasing. Technology's requested a system support tech. They have an additional staff in a number of years. And as technology's grown and needs have grown, that's put a big strain on it. We do have some software licensing costs, which are pretty minimal. And then transportation, who hasn't had any increase in their budget for several years, is prices are going up. So that's for additional funds. We've also set aside this year kind of new a regulatory and accountability section, dealing with some of the topics like Title IX and OCR and some of those things. The first is Dean of Students. The plan is to put a Dean of Students at each school, with a half a Dean of Students at Hecker and Treasure Mountain, to deal with some of these things that we're addressing and trying to bolster things up. We also have the tiered behavior supports. We've set aside those funds. At times in the year, we do have contract times that we have to meet the needs of some students. And so we've set that money aside. And then right now, Ecker Hill and Treasure Mountain share counseling between them, which is, part of that's time as well as that person goes back and forth travel, has to get up to speed, for those days or what's going on. So we're looking at adding the half to each one, again, to bolster needs of kids. And then we have also budgeted for an athletic director. This isn't a replacement athletic director. This is a new position. And so we've set that aside to help with any of the demographics we have at the high school.
So two, does one reporting together? They're both on, okay.
Okay, so those are the total requests. They come to $2.7 million, almost $2.8 million. And then below that, I have the prior commitments that we've made with the negotiated agreement. Employees will receive steps and 6% across the board. We've already approved a new preschool program with the actually expansion of the preschool program, as a couple of those schools are getting done. Preschool supplies are also needed for that. We do have 3 TOSAs coming off of funding from ESSER. ESSER funding is done as of this year. And so that's the cost of those 3 TOSAs. We also have adding custodians for the new square footage at 3 schools, which is the reason a couple of them are 2 is because we have more than an 8-hour period going on there, right, with the after school stuff. And so we've got a need for some additional help there. So utilities for the elementary additions, which is a given when you add more square footage, we're going to have an increase in utilities. And we've got the utilities as part of that 1/3, and taking care of the water with the ILA and Park City Municipal. And so we've budgeted those things. So if we go to the next page, as you look at the revenues, I've got in here, I won't go into too much detail on this. We've got a little information from property tax, not a whole lot. Talked with the county a few times. Nothing's in the system at this point as they're finalizing their numbers. We do have some state WPU money coming. That's about $700,000. And then if you notice under the local sources, that last item, the 2.08 increment increase, recalling back to last year, we did say that for the 25 budget and for the 26 budget, because of the increase that we agreed to in the negotiation, we'd be at a 2.2 increment increase in property tax. Remember last year was a 4.1 increment increase. But I believe we're gonna be below that this year overall, and so part of that's gonna depend on where property tax values come out and more what we learn next week as far as final legislative numbers and some of those things. So I think it does look positive that it's gonna be less. We also, if you notice at the bottom, it says repurpose funds, 834,000. We do have some money that we can repurpose in the budget as we've gone through kind of with a fine tooth comb through that budget. And we've got a little bit more. I'm quite not ready to commit it until we know what property tax is gonna be with some of those things, because that's gonna affect us. So, but I think it's gonna be a little cleaner than what we see here, a little better picture. So I'm kind of giving you what I imagine is worst case scenario. But with it, we'll decrease that property tax increment increase on that. Questions on operations?
Assuming this has been scrubbed a few times, right? Are there any things that fell out that were really essential or?
Or at big asks.
Yeah, big asks that are going that didn't make it in?
I would say no, there was there was at least one request that came in, but because we're doing the deans, it kind of offsets that request, so we're working through that. Not saying that may not happen,
Right.
but yeah, really, that was pretty much everything that was requested. Yeah.
And then, it's maybe touched, but with the transition to the grade realignment, there are positions that are redundant. We have plans for all that. It's coming up quickly. Yeah.
So having custodians, for instance, and different anticipating.
Like,
Yeah.
when you lose a school.
So I'll just say, as we've talked about we'll place all employees.
Oh, okay.
We don't anticipate a RIF.
Okay.
There's always a little bit of attrition going on.
Right.
And so we're not, but the last resort would be a RIF. We don't anticipate a RIF. But we may have to be a little creative and work through that. I think that's probably gonna be done in the fall, maybe. I'm not sure the timing of that is. We're pretty early, so folks will know what's going on next
Great.
year.
Okay, good.
And I'm just gonna clarify where it says cost on 1.5 million primary home is 83, that's for one increment, correct?
So yes, one increment, if your home's valued at $1.5 million, it's your primary residence, that one increment increase is $83, yeah,
For the year.
correct. So just over the two increments we're asking would be double that. We're generating on one increment, we're generating right now about $3.5 million.
Okay.
Talking to the county, they've got some opinions as what's gonna happen with assessed value, but they're not sure yet, so I don't really want to disclose those until we're later.
I have a question about the dean of students.
Yeah.
How is that different from the vice principals? So a dean of students is somebody who's interested in potentially being an administrator, in an administrator program, and their focus is really on the disciplinary, the restorative practice, and the keeping the very consistent investigation and reports. So they're learning how to be an assistant principal is basically their role. So it's kind of that stepping stone into the AP role.
And the
But
idea,
what they couldn't do if they can't do a teacher eval, right? They can't evaluate a teacher except under administrative, yeah. So they can't be in the teacher classroom, but they can observe some of the supervision staff, maybe custodians.
yeah,
Do you have a job description for that position? I'd love to see.
This year we've piloted, so this year we've had Aline Gaspari and we've had Carla Alford as split deans between the elementary schools. And each principal said, if I could just have a consistent person here all the time, it would help me so much. You know, so it helps the 4 elementary schools. The secondary schools, if you recall, they have 2 assistant principals, but when I first got here, they had 3. We attritioned them knowing we were doing this realignment. So this kind of helps bolster them in that in between.
and it's under the OCR, Title IX, accountability, all given with the recent OCR findings and all of the different issues that seem to have hit schools. The idea that their focus is on this behavioral element and consistent, like, and sort of get to all of that.
So if an issue comes up, that's the person we've got, that has all the details.
Net change in budget, is that from last year, or well, from this year to proposed next year?
What do you mean that change?
Well, net change in budget means nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's just saying, hey, we're gonna repurpose funds to make up the difference. Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to get we're supposed to have a balanced budget, and so we're just trying to get the balanced budget. As far as total expenses, that's gonna change, right? So this really just is bottom line. Yeah.
What's the plan, the schedule for the budget? You remind me?
So we are required by June first to have something published,
Okay.
publicly, here at the office and online. We're once again, we were a little bit behind last year. As you remember, we've done a new budget book. We've got a software that's helping us with that. We've started the budget book for this year, which will contain the new budgeting as well, and variables. Our goal right now is to have something by the middle of May that's printable in a draft. But the requirement is by June first, we have to post the tentative budget.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, there'll be more.
Seems kind of painless, it's fine, in years past, it's been really long.
The budget itself,
Well, the whole process, is that right? Yeah, I think this was faster.
we can make it more.
No,
We can make it more painful.
no, I'm just asking, did I miss anything? Cause like, okay.
Well, I think it goes to the staff, right? The staff in schools, the administration, the principals over there. Not asking for a lot of things that are just wishes. It's like they put a lot of forethought into it. Same with the administration here, they put a lot of forethought into, hey, where are we? What do we have? We realize we do have some things that are greater than other districts and I think it's just a show of their ability to be as frugal as possible while trying to meet needs of kids.
That's great.
So.
Awesome, appreciate it.
Okay, capital, we'll go through that real quick. Capital's pretty standard. We set aside a contingency with that. Just to kind of give you a sense of how capitals worked prior to my time and prior before construction projects. Basically, it was about $1 million allocated per school. It wasn't given to the school, it was given to buildings and grounds and transportation and technology to meet the needs. When the bond came about, the lease revenue bond, we're paying that out of capital, those numbers went down, so they've kind of been doing everything on bare bones, not kind of, but they have been doing everything on bare bones. So some of these things may be catch-ups, some of these things may be just stuff we can't wait. We are trying to give them a little more revenue, and we think we're about a year away from getting back to what they're used to with community school, in that, so with construction coming to a close. Pretty standard stuff, playgrounds, block repair, concrete, asphalt, buses, those kind of things. So without going through every single line item, there's several things in there you can look at. We did have some prior commitments. This is the 1.5 million you approved a meeting ago, so we need to get a head start on it. If those funds are spent in the current year out of fund balance and the budget is split, we take away the budget next year and put it back in fund balance. So it's not that we're spending that money twice, overall. And then we've got some projects next in line. I'll kind of talk about this on the revenue page, the next page. But these are the projects that if fund balance comes out well at the end of this year, we'll allocate a little more money to them to get these other projects complete. Overall, those are the 3 projects you see there. So I'll just go straight to the revenue. This is what we're anticipating, about $10 million for the capital budget. All of that comes from property tax and interest earned. Technology, we allocate 1.1 million for student computers and different things like that. We have the lease revenue bond payment of 2.8 million, and then we've set aside 1.9 million for construction, which was agreed to each year for up till the construction is done. That money, of course, can be repurposed into projects that are needed around the district if we don't need it for construction overall. As Mike reported, those numbers are coming in really well, so we think that might be the case. We do have a school furniture allocation for schools. The amounts given to each school takes up 80,000, and then we've allocated 373,000 from fund balance to get us to the 4.6. So we've said to them, you've got 4.6 to spend. We could possibly go all the way up to 5, depending on what fund balance does. We won't know that until the year end close, but I am anticipating that's a likely scenario. So things are looking better in capital. I think better than 2 years ago, maybe. I don't know. I could have to tell us yes or no. But I think we're going to see improvements in capital in the next couple of years as construction.
If we've been a little low on capital funding, any particular risks that we should be aware of?
Anytime you delay capital funds, you start to accrue the incentives. So we have some things that we probably should address relatively quickly, that normally we had full funding, we would address already. They're not a safety issue. But, and if there were a safety issue, obviously we got a bigger pushing to the top of this. But I think this is adequate to meet our operating needs for the year and to ensure that.
Those boilers aren't cheap.
Boilers are not cheap.
Never,
And some of it was elevated too because of the snow last year, right? And then the snow this year and then heavy years, so that wears on asphalt, wears on block.
Yeah.
wears on-
Then by June, you'll have the master athletic plan finalized, so we want to look at the finalized update of that, and then that'll go into future planning. We'll go into next year's budget.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks. Thanks, Fran. Clear and straight to the point. Okay, we have 5 policies for posting based on the amendment that we, at the beginning of the meeting. We're posting the following policy, 101, professional standards and staff code of conduct. It's been updated. Policy 3000, shared decision-making. It's part of the 5-year review. Policy 110, student enrollment. The changes are aligned now to state legislation for earlier posting and gathering of applications for student enrollment. Policy 3013, the bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, and this impacts both employees and students. So we are, it's being renumbered and we're updating it to align to both Utah legislation and OCR requirements and beyond. It was previously the 1001, and this is where we're addressing some abusive conduct against staff and is addressed and all aligned to legislation. So that is policy renumbered. Policy 3012, non-discrimination, and it combines 2 policies in alignment with our OCR. It aligns the policies 186 and 1000. And those 2 would be repealed and replaced with this new policy 3012. I am looking for a motion for posting those 5 policies.
I'll make a motion to post those policies.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Or can we have a discussion?
Are you going to update this?
Yeah, it's only 4 here. That's what we did at the beginning of the meeting. We added one. Oh, yeah, I see.
So I can
Yeah.
have eyeballs on them.
They're on there.
You should refresh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alright.
I just say, I'm still in the same before.
I just want to see what I'm being proposed.
1009, 7070, 10001, 10002.
Policies for.
Well, I
okay,
think
1, 2,
that
3,
last
there's
one
5 there
has 2 in there.
now. Okay, the
Oh,
other 5.
that's two.
Yep, okay, sorry. that-
Oh, yeah.
There they are, thank you.
Yeah, does that make
Okay,
sense?
so yes, now you can ask the question.
Okay. Is there any discussion right now on either any of these? No. I look forward to seeing comments and encourage people to review these and please submit comments. I think it's really important that we have people doing that. All right. We're gonna move on. Oh, is it all in?
Oh, we didn't do that yet.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Policies proposed. All right, now we're gonna do policies for adoption. The following 3 policies are up for adoption. Lori, do we have any comments that we've received on any of these policies?
No, I have not had any.
No, okay. I will accept a motion. We're gonna do these one by one, instead.
Okay.
Because we have comments, different comments to talk about each one.
Okay.
So I, will accept a motion to approve policy 109. Any member second that?
Motion to adopt policy 109.
That is our privacy policy statement. All right, do you have a second? Okay, any discussion on this?
I don't, other than just the awareness around this topic in general, especially with that data breach that happened that affected. Yes. And how that can have a big impact, and of course, we want to keep everything.
Yeah.
Safe.
Okay, so, and Lori, no, again, no comments received. All right. All in favor of adopting policy 109? Aye. Great. We're now gonna move on to policy 7070, paid parental leave. Do I have a motion to adopt policy 7070, paid parental leave? It was just some minor changes, definitions of usage and, some other wording.
So I'll make a motion to adopt policy 7070.
Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion? Lori, any further comments on those? No? Great. All in favor? Aye, adoption of policy 7070. All right, I will accept a motion to approve policy 1002. And this is the policy, student conduct and participation policy for school teams and clubs and extracurricular activities. Do I have a motion to adopt policy 1002?
I'll make a motion to adopt policy 1002.
All right, you have a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
Great.
Yes.
So for the appeal process, is this just going forward or for any student that has been had their participation in extracurricular activity affected prior to the adoption of this law?
Just moves forward from the time it's adopted.
And then was there an appeal process in these?
Question for secondary. Do you know, Caleb, was there an appeal process before if you had an athletic code of conduct violation, either via UHSAA or district?
I think, I mean, UHSA does have an appeal process, but they have thresholds, UHSA and appeal to that, but there's also locally, our process was always principal, and then principal, beyond principal, all the way to student service or superintendent.
And beyond that, there is, I mean, because this talks about, a committee. Right, yeah.
But it was not. Not that I'm aware of.
I'd be curious to dig into that committee, but to flesh
Yeah.
that out there. I mean,
This has a
I've
lot
had
of
a parent raise this with me
Yeah.
recently and
Yeah.
would like to have this looked at, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel exactly like there's some, I need clarity on what that looks like. And I also had a question about, students that are 18 that are participating, how that affects with the socialization of this to families, like how this gets out and it's the policy that this is, are we really making sure it's super clear and enforced and what that appeal committee looks like.
are you referring to that, the very last paragraph, it's the responsibility of all coaches and club advisors to ensure that students are informed of this policy and understand the importance of their conduct, and the responsibility to get this out to beyond
Yeah.
students, how is that? gonna
Yeah, and to me, when you say
Yeah,
responsibility,
exactly.
that's great, but what does that mean? You have to sign
Yeah.
something, you have to sit in the
Yeah.
class, your parent who under 18 has to know, like, I just would
Mhm.
like a little more
More
around this.
question. So just for clarity, this policy was posted. I know it went out for through several teams and through several different iterations. A lot of people have a chance to comment on it.
So
I
that's.
know I see some, the red lines in here are some of those comments that were received. And I know that the high school, and secondary schools had a chance to look at this and include language that they wanted to, make sure was considered in this policy. I do have several questions and wonder if where we could, consider some of this and have it posted for another, bit of time so that we can get this right. It seems like a really important matter. I have the restorative language, which I think was added maybe from secondary schools, which I love. It's in the appeal process. Is that part of before an appeal process is implemented? Is restorative justice practices a practice that is when there is a disciplinary issue or there's an issue off campus, or how could restorative justice be invoked before an appeal process? Right, because that expectation is that, well, I wonder, I mean, it feels this is only after somebody has been, has received a consequence that's significant and they then can appeal a decision. So if that makes, if they want restorative justice, are we looking at that as something earlier in the process? I also, and this is an unfortunate part of having any sort of, legal training, there's language in here that I'm not sure how accurate it reflects, like juvenile laws in the state of New York, for instance. The juvenile laws, they're not even charged, they're not crimes, they're called delinquency hearings. There's a whole bunch of different things, and I wonder if we could have this looked at with an expert in criminal justice and have the correct language included. I'm thoughtful about this section that talks about having a process that is, I think it's section 4, where the word crime is used against a person. Again, that wouldn't ever happen with a juvenile because it's not considered a crime under like juvenile laws. It could be considered a delinquency proceeding if there's something language around that. I'm thoughtful that, we have some language in here that might be a little bit, unclear. And I know that a lot of this is nuanced stuff. I'm also thoughtful that we review, the language around what an investigation, by whom? Is that by the Summit County Attorney's Office? Is that by a staff member? Is it by an outside group? When we're talking about investigation, that can happen at a lot of levels. And so that, I'm thoughtful about that language. And finally, and I will stop,
Well, just to that, I would also then question, is there a priority? Like if Summit County Attorney's Office does an investigation and has a finding like that, then being
well, and
considered in this.
yeah. Well, it raises the question, we're not gonna always know when Summit County is investigating juveniles. It's just not, and we're not gonna even know the results of most of those. Cause that's a privacy confidential process. So to connect anything to that.
And if it isn't, you know, if it is something that there's knowledge of.
Exactly.
Insight into,
Yeah,
does that come into bear then?
right. And so I think it would be really great to have this looked at with an expert criminal justice who could help guide us with the right language and what this actually impacts, because we all know policy isn't going to be effectuated until it's effectuated with procedures and practices. So if we don't have a language that allows to support the practices and procedures that could work, it seems to me like it's gonna be a policy that might not be as effective as it could be. It's not to put this off for longer, because I think there's some urgency in this for sure, but it's to get it right. And, I think I would also be interested in following procedures and practices. I understand not putting that in here because we all know that changing any policy around practices and procedures is a lot of work. And it has to be posted, and that's not our realm, that's not our lane. But following, to Ann's question earlier, what does that look like when we say we're going to advise families about this? What does it look like when we say we're gonna implement restorative justice? What does it look like, I mean, from a budgetary perspective, from a resource perspective, from an actual practical implementation perspective? Because I think some of it sounds great. And then who ultimately has that? Who's gonna oversee, or who's gonna supervise this? Who's gonna make sure, whether it's coaches or extracurricular club directors are following, whose oversight is that? And where does that fall?
Yeah, it's under,
So it'd be,
under the
One-
athletic director.
One more, do we also need to be more clear about what constitutes minor and severe infractions?
Right, that's the language we need
Yeah,
to-
yeah.
Those are linked right to safe schools policy. So the idea was you don't have different policy, you don't have a different minor consequence in athletics than you do in the safe schools policy, right? So all of these are linked to safe schools. And they're also linked, the language so far, like the duty to report, that's
Yeah.
right out of state law.
I mean, that's just required. Yeah, no, that's good. I think I think we could all use an understanding of how Utah is unique in its juvenile system. It is, and I think that it would be interesting for all of us to have some training on that, and then administrators, those implementing this, so they can even use the same language when we're talking to families and we're out there and the verbiage is clear. And there are, again, under the restorative justice premise that we all want to see. Well, you know, there's miscarriages of justice all the time, that happens among adults, among kids, and it's how to get better from that. It's not that, it's not to say it doesn't happen. We are acknowledging that it happens, and that's for exactly precisely why we're trying to do something. Which, I think if we just have the highest level of, commitment to this and implementation, we're better off. So I would, I'm hesitant to adopt tonight. I mean, that's, where I sit, I would love some more looking into that and maybe some more information before, and clarification on that before our next meeting, if maybe we could have that or an understanding of if we do have to do a closed session with attorneys or to discuss. I'm not sure what that looks like, but that's what my preference would be. Anyone else?
And then,
Also makes sense.
yeah, and then policy, who is managing this, yeah, but making sure that it's crystal clear of the expectations and the training. Making sure that's being followed.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make a motion.
Okay, so I will make a motion to.
So the person that made the motion can withdraw the motion.
Don't we
Okay,
have to, don't you make the motion to adopt and then we all say no, and then it goes back and just vote?
Yeah.
Just withdraw the motion.
All right, so I withdraw the motion.
I mean, just another bit too, Betty.
I withdraw. You know what? A second, or, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go back to committee
So
for
the two
revising.
that have the motion are the ones that withdraw.
Yeah, okay, it's withdrawn and it's now going back to.
Now you're back
For
to square one.
revision.
Back to square one, okay.
Okay, so
Thank
I
you.
don't need to do.
And
any
people can do Robert's rules.
All right.
Okay.
I think that brings us to public comments. Do we have, we'll go ahead and read. The Board of Education wants to hear the input from community members at our meetings in order to respect and preserve the time allotted to each presenter on the agenda. Each speaker has a limited 3 minutes to speak. Speakers representing a group will be limited to 5 minutes. If you wish to address the board, please read and complete the blue public comment sheet that we have right here. And you can just write down a quick little note. We have anyone here for public comment and hand it to Lori, please, if there's a blue comment, and we would appreciate anyone who is going to speak, that each speaker comes up to the rostrum to speak in the order in which the forms are received. The Board of Education expects that all public comments will be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying personnel. Personnel issues are not appropriate for public comment, therefore such comments will not be allowed. Do we have anyone here for public comment? No, thanks for reading. Wow, sorry. That's really lame. All right, well, I look for a motion to adjourn until our next meeting, which is set for May 14th. May what? 14th at 4 o'clock.
Make a motion to adjourn until our next meeting, May 14th at 4 o'clock.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Middle school band concert that night, so we gotta have a.
We're gonna do a quick one, maybe another. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for